Good evening, folks. Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a round 5 summary of the now solo game that I'm playing. Now, quite a few differences have happened in Hilltop's game and my game. Starting off, Japan did not utilize their sneak attack. They did not declare war on the Commonwealth, which the US, they had to roll a 21 to be in the war. And guess what they rolled? They rolled a 20. So the US is now at 79 on the IPP tracker, which that was unlikely they were going to be in. So the Japanese decided to negate the use of their sneak attack, which meant the United States is not in the war and they could not lend lease to the Russians. However, they will be in the war next round. And now the UK decided to declare war on the Japanese. So a couple little wrinkles. I think in Hilltop's game, the Japanese decided to use their sneak attack. So we will get into those differences and how the game's unfolding differently in each, just based on the rolling of the dice with respect to the US economy and also Japan weighing their options that they had. So now the UK, the Far East Command, and ANZAC declaring war, they're able to get their NO bonuses. So it's a +5 for each. The Far East Command still have Malaya, still have Hong Kong, still have Calcutta. So I think they have to control 2 of the 3. I can't remember, but they get their NO. And for the FEC, I believe it's control of Dutch New Guinea and Dutch East Indies, and all these islands over here still under ANZAC control. So that is different. There was a battle here, and probably not sure it went in anybody's favor other than it was mutual destruction. The UK, or the Far East Command, did go into Szechuan here with 4 armor, the tactical bomber, and 4 infantry versus, I believe it was 9 Japanese units, 5 veteran infantry who defended well, and that's what's left is a British medium tank. However, it was something the Far East Command, they needed to do to take pressure off of the KMT. So currently that's the situation. Japan has been reduced a little bit, but what this ended up doing now is now Calcutta is not off the table for the Japanese. So currently Japan brought its navy down here off of Siam. They built a naval base. They've got a small naval there with 3 naval transports which can swing around the Horn and hit Calcutta, or is it Shan State? What is it? Oh, Bangladesh next turn. Currently they don't have quite the numbers yet, but they will. So currently now, because there's a naval base here, the Far East Command cannot get too far away from their capital of Calcutta, because the Japanese can just 1, 2, 3 and leapfrog around. So you're going to see, at least the Far East Command, stay more at home. The Japanese continue to build some fast movers here, continue to bulk up in Siam. They brought their navy over here off of the Dutch East Indies. That's what that's called. Or Dutch New Guinea. I apologize, because they want to get rich. They want these money islands. Just the projection of these 2 navies here. The Australians have brought their navy to South Australia to get out of the way. They did build a couple more destroyers, but they are no match for this Japanese navy. And the Japan is ready to convoy over here next turn, and ready to convoy over here next turn. So that is significant. The United States did build a couple more destroyers, and they are set off actually in this sea zone here off of Canada, and actually, is it Pacific Northwest? Because they, from this sea zone here, it's a naval base there now, they can go 1, 2, 3 and hit Tokyo next turn, which the Japanese are going to see that coming. So they're going to have to do a build in Tokyo and get this small little navy out of the way or bringing this some Navy back. But currently the U.S. isn't really that big of a threat with their 2 naval transports. However, they do have a large Navy, and they move some of their aircraft here at a naval base or air base in Midway. So a little bit of projection of power by the Americans. The Russians reinforced the KMT. The British came up here from Kashmir into China. So trying to do a last stand before the Japanese are able to break through. Currently now, they're about to, start marching across Russia. The CCP is now out of the fight, and they're going to be able to continue to march across Mongolia. So currently only the Russians can probably help now. The KMT's got, just a few guys left. So the British are also now marching up from the Middle East into Russia. Now a little bit of a standoff here in regards to units. The Russians built a factory at this big stack here of Ole Kursk, and the Germans are kind of locked in at this territory here. I don't even know what territory that is. I think it's Ukraine. There's about 5 or 6 Italian units there ready to can open, but they want to be smart about it. They don't want to waste their units. Now the other significant thing that happened here in this fight is the British now have all of Africa, so there's no more Axis units in Africa. The French units here, the Vichy French units, they do not classify as Axis units. It's only German or Italian units, which meant the British did a landing in Greece and also a landing over here and annexed Turkey. So the Italians took Greece back. But this air base here in Crete has worked wonders for the British. They're now starting to build up a little bit of a navy. They still have 3 naval transports on the board. And now they've annexed this Turkish navy, which is a coastal battleship and a destroyer. So they're going to be happy about that. Plus all these Turkish units. One of the territories here, I think it's Ankara. Can't remember. A rebel. Can't remember the name of it. It's all buried under stuff. They've got 6 infantry there. And this other territory has 2 fighters, a AAA gun, a cavalry, a couple infantry, and artillery. So, but what this does is also opens up the port of the Black Sea. So next turn, if the British wanted to, they could come into this sea zone here in the Black Sea and do a naval landing somewhere. So now the Germans have to take this threat seriously, because if they're building 10 units here per turn, if the British are going to build a couple more transports, they could eventually come down and do a landing in Bulgaria and make the Axis invasion into Russia a little bit harder if they are to lose this major factory here in Romania, which they do not want to do. But currently the Germans are doing well. They're pushing into Russia. The Russians did a counterattack. They did not roll well. They lost a fighter to AAA here, and it was mutual destruction here. So the Germans did take Leningrad, and the Russians took it back. However, it's now sort of a battle of attrition here on the northern flank. On the southern flank, it's currently about 45 units aside, but the Russians now have a fortification here in Ole Kursk, which now means that the Germans, who have mostly lower hitting units, are sort of a stalemate. But what did the Italians do? Well, they are still reinforcing Rome and Turin, which now are sort of an impregnable force here. It should hold for at least a couple more rounds. With this new NO bonus here for having the 5 territories on Western Europe, which the Germans were able to do quite easily. So they were able to get 10 NO bonus, and this little hedgehog here, which is an automatic kill for any ground units coming in. And also I think adds +1 defense. I can't remember what the Hedgehog does. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. The Germans moved all of their navy out here, so if there is a landing here, that means the entire Luftwaffe and navy are now going to come sink whatever's here. So the Allies have to be very careful about coming across. Now, currently, the British now have 5 naval transports in the Atlantic. So Canada, has about 4 guys there. The Americans they've got 3 transports here and 2 battleships and a small navy. And then this contingent ragtag of Canadians, of Russians, of British, and of Free French. There's 3 naval transports there as well to come across. So they're getting ready to do a landing in Western Europe, but currently, because the Germans did not go full hog into Russia, they decided to build up here in Paris and in Western Germany. So they are going to be able to push off the Allies if they do a landing in Western Europe next turn. So it's going to be a game of attrition here in terms of navies, in terms of units that can land over here in Europe, and a battle of attrition over here on the Eastern Front, but also a battle of attrition over here now. How fast can Japan get its units over here to crush China, to put pressure on Russia, so that basically weaken that Russian economy, so that the Germans can come trouncing in and capture Moscow? And is Calcutta going to hold? And how much longer before the Japanese are able to get rich and capture all these money islands and make Anzac and make the FEC poor? So what can the Americans do over here in the Pacific? Well, I guess time is going to tell. Now, Japan does have, about 4 submarines here, a destroyer, a couple cruisers here, and a couple spread out submarines, but they're going to have to, get their navy eventually back up to here. So Japan's probably going to have 2 navies, a navy over here in the South Pacific, and then a navy up here to fend off the Americans. And maybe does America want to go Pacific, or do they want to go Atlantic? Well, it appears now they're set up to go both ways, so we'll see what happens in round 6.